Hello, Assalamualaikum to all of you. Good morning. Semoga sentiasa sihat. And hari ni we're going to continue chapter 3, which is theory in IR. So, tanpa buang masa, let's start the okay, kejap Okay, so chapter 3, theory in IR, international relations. This chapter we're going to discuss about the theory, what's will have in terms of theory in IR. Okay, and so meaning of theory, apa sebenarnya teori itu kan? Okay, meaning of theory. So before we start to describe what is actually theory of international relations, so we need to know what is theory about. So theory are explanations of the nature of social behavior, event or phenomena. More formally, a scientific theory is a system of construct, or we call it as concept, and proportions. We call it as relationship between those constructed that collectively present a logical, scientific, and coherent explanation of phenomena of interest within some assumptions, and also boundary condition. It means theory should explain why things happen rather than just describe or predict. Okay, this is from Brakhart's 1986. Okay, so what are some common words that are often associated with theory, and what exactly are we doing when we say we are doing theory? So theory is an important story to help to make sense of some phenomena. It is a kind of model. Okay, for example, how we define in theory. So it is a abstract system concept and the relationship between us to help to understand the phenomena. Okay, theorizing is a process of systematically formulating and organizing idea to understand a particular phenomena. Okay, so for example, teori kita menggunakan, we use a certain theory to underline the concept, to show the situations, right? So it is also as an organized set of concept, explanations, and also principle of some aspect of human experience. Theories also are abstractions. They reduce experience to a set of category, and as a result, always leave something out. So theories are also construction, so dia berstruktur and created by people. So represent various way observe their, for example, they see and see the environment, they live in the certain of period, so they analyze and so they capture the relative insight the itself. Okay, so when we talk about historical context, so the major debates lah about the theoretical discussion between international relations scholar. So a lot of theory that particular connect with international relations. So much more development and also the evolution has changed. Some theory become more complexity, and so in other discipline, for example, philosophy, history, economic law, and others, they has a new insight, or maybe some matters are influence the IR process. Okay, first of all, the fathers of theory, which is called the realism. Okay, so basic in IR, they have two big theory, orang kata the fundamental theory, which is realism and also the liberalism. Okay, So historical of realism. So this theory of realism is in IR has been developed throughout the history by famous philosopher. Okay, the founding fathers of the realism is Thucydides. Okay, and then Thucydides and he actually explained the war that happened during his days, which is Polynesian War. So Polynesian War ni between Sparta and the Athens. Okay, the Democrats are the policy maker. The Spartan is the military. Okay, the soldier that being used to invade, to go for war. Okay, to see that analyze the Polynesian War. Okay, and he analyzed, for example, if we also can notice if Spartans fight with the Democrats, for sure Spartan will win because Spartan is a military army. So to see that analyze the war, and then he actually says and find the concept of realism. He says that to become a strong, you must win the war. So you must be human are greedy to get the power, all everything lah. Okay, so they analyze. If you see that's analyze what actually happened during his era, and also Sun Tzu, the art of war, Machiavelli, he has his magnum opus, which is called the On War, Thomas Hobbes, and closer to our time lah. Okay, for example, E.H. Carr, 1930s. So a lot of scholar they actually experience and also examine what actually happened during their era, and then they put some analyze to their concept. Okay, so emerge and in modern IR. Modern realism emerged and dominating IR after World War II. So state used power to pursue IR, okay, and rationally use power to pursue national interests. So view in realism always view men are bad, aggressive, and evil. Okay, and then a war is being always being used as a natural to hold pessimistic to view on peace. For realism perspective, war only can settle all the crises. Okay, this is introduction realism, a leading theory of international relation. For example, power lah of the state is a major element, and state are the competitive, so peace through strengthen. Okay, it brought out of World War II, replaced the idealism of utopian ideas of the interwar period. So it enforced state-centric assumptions of realism established by the Peace of Westphalia. So in realism, they don't accept third parties or international organization is not a part of the the state. So they don't trust any international bodies or any treaty. Okay. The historical tradition of realism, we have Thucydides, Machiavelli, Thomas Hobbes, Rousseau, and etc. Okay, realism has been easily the most influential theory of international relation. Most diplomat, politician, professor have implicitly or explicitly believe that realism provides the best account on how international relations work. It is a quite simple, common sense theory, so it can be explained in a few straightforward propositions. Okay, the branch of realism, you have classical, neorealism, defensive realism, offensive realism. So classical, a constructive theory that consider state the only actor. So dalam IR ni ada satu actor je, dia tak ada lain, which is state, and also give implications to military power and also maximize power. So if you want to become ultimate, you have to win the war, you have to build up your military strategy, all to classical lah. Okay, and then we have neo-realism, a theory developed by Kenneth Waltz, in which state seeks to survive within an anarchist system. What is anarchist system? So dalam sistem antarabangsa, menurut perspektif realism, on realism perspective, sistem antarabangsa ni anarki, which means they don't have any rules or they don't have any peraturan undang-undang on the international system. For example, nowadays, like not Korea lah, so he don't trust United Nations. He feel that international environment has an anarchy system. They don't have any structure power because only in our perspective or realism perspective, uh, state only believe on state rules. So they don't believe on the third parties or international organization rules. Okay, so that's why in terms of neoliberalism, although you need to maximize your power to become ultimate, but yet neoliberalism is more complex in the modern era, for example, like now, because although it is a realism, but the use of war or the use of force is for sure can be prohibited. Got more lot of choice that we can use to maintain international security and peace of the state. Okay, yang terakhir, nombor 3 ada defensive realism. Those who argue that the state are security maximized, so focusing on the security itself and military power. And then the last will be the offensive, those who argue that the state are power maximized. Okay, so they want to offense. Offense means kehadapan. Okay, for example, American is offensive realism lah, because they build up their military. For example, China itself, right? Kalau defensive realism, they maximize the security itself. They don't let go to the war, but they want to prepare, for example, any explosion that come over. Okay, classical realism. This one was developed around 80s lah. Respond to the European ideas during the interwar period. Sought to balance moral decision making but with the rational pursuit of power. So the major writers and contributor the realist tradition are the Hans Morgenthau lah. Okay, the founding classical realism will be the Thucydides regarding the conflict with Athens and Sparta. It is called the Peloponnesian War. Okay, the philosophical doctrine of meaning of realism as usual exists outside of the mind, while in the field of the internationalism, realism became the dominant analytical paradigm mostly after the start of Second World War, when it displays idealist doctrine, promising to provide more accurate information, more powerful and more relevant answer to the roots of causes of peace and war. Okay. So classicalism according to philosopher ada lots, for example. So this is the main four. Thucydides, Machiavelli. You can also look at the book itself. For example, The Prince, Thomas Hobbes, Langton, and also State of War, Rousseau. Okay. So theory of realism. Thucydides portrayed as the founder of the school. So his book is Story of the Peloponnesian War. So he mentioned that the main reason of this war was the growth of Athenian power and the fear that causes in Sparta. Okay, the security dilemma. Okay. So apa maksud security dilemma ni? Is something fear that we predict. For example, uh, okay, Malaysia and Singapore. So Singapore by a submarine, so we feel that, oh, Singapore by submarine, feel that they wanted to attack us, so we also want to develop our security. So that means security dilemma. Okay, so it's a founder of classical realism. Since human nature is the main cause of realism happen, so human by nature is egoistic. Manusia ni dilahirkan born as greedy people, ego people. So protect. They have their own self-interest. They don't protect others' self-interest, and also they seek power. So Thucydides believes that realism start from the war between Athens and Sparta, where both ethnic fight among them to see who is the most powerful. So they believe that by having power, then the independent nation will be described as powerful. Okay, Thomas Hobbes, a famous philosopher who promoted realism through his writing and introduced realist terms like balance of power, real politics. His book, Hobbes' Leventhal, helped in establish the modern system of the state. So for example, balance of power ni, for example, as I said, in Cold War, right? So they have two powers, so you balance your power. So real politics, which means real politics, okay. For example, uh, for example, fight war gains, that is real politics lah. Okay. So in the nature of man, according to Hobbes, there are three principal causes of quarrel, which are competition, differentiate, and also glory. So according to Leviathan, a perpetual and restless desire of power after power that cheats only in that. So man's lives are full of cruelty, egoism, unconstrained passion that is directed by sense of insecurity and fear in the state of nature. So it's a chaotic and anarchical place where every man feels insecure and hurt each other. So Hobbes argue that people would hurt each other because of a high fear in a state of nature as they are naturally compete for well. Okay, this is Hans Morgenstau, okay, known for systematical classical realism and one of the founding fathers of realist. So he's a modern thinker. So modern realism. So power is the most fundamental. He says power is the most fundamental of all political activity. And he also agrees with Hobbes that men's feeling of insecurity are prevalent. He also added that the intellectual of moral history of mankind is the story of insecurity. So scientific man versus power politics books has critiqued the ideas of liberalism, rationalism. Okay, this is Niccolo Machiavelli. So his book, famous book, The Prince. You can also see it at internet. So Machiavelli has his compound on classical and also Christian thought. Okay, so in moral behavior, are normal. Okay, says that in moral behavior are normal, and it and also whatever you feel that you use to get what you get, just do it. Okay, so and effective is in politics. So he said that it will be great to be both feared and also loved. It is better to be widely feared than to be greatly loved. So he don't have any immoral behavior lah. So for example, and justify mean, matlamat menghalalkan cara. So it is also by the Machiavelli. And then the next will be Rousseau. So Rousseau, like many, also he's a modern realism. Uh, Contribution to literature and also his primary contribution are to political theory through the vehicle of the source and also inequality of the social contract. So major assumptions of classical realism. So first is human being are selfish, interest maximizing creature. Human are nature is not. Okay, so you can find lah. Okay, for example, manusia ni dilahirkan greedy, right? That's why they seek for power. Okay. So second internationalization are basically unnecessary conflictual and also international conflict are generally resolved by war. So for example, any resolution or any conflict have to settle by war. Okay, the third state survival. Each state security are above of all. So negara yang paling penting. State survival is more important than everything. Okay, and number four, unlikely domestic political life. There cannot be progress in international policy because there is no super agency that regulates the international system. So dalam international system tak ada, it's an anarchy international system. They don't believe in organization, they only believe in state. That's why they seek for war in using they seek for power in using war. Siapa yang jadi kuasa paling berkuasa, dialah yang akan kontrol dunia ni. Okay. Pro and cons. Pro can achieve their state interstate in terms of power. For example, Soviet Union versus United States of America. Cons are ignore of humanity and peace of state, anarchical self-help system make cooperation difficult to achieve. Okay, cannot works. Modern realism. So one of the founding fathers of modern realism, theory of international politics, is book. He one of the two perspective have dominant international relation theory for the last 3 decades. So on his book, he says that state leader naturally choose a foreign policy that will maximize security risks in an anarchical financial system. So security is the most important element. Okay, so his assumption, state and other actors interact in anarchic environment. So it says that structure of the system is a major determinant of actor behavior. For example, hegemonies and alliance. So who become the superpower or hegemonies? Hegemonies ni maksudnya superpower lah. Kuasa tunggal. Okay, he can rule the world. So if you cannot become an hegemony, so go for alliance. For example, we have alliance NATO, right? So for example, we have United Nations. So that's alliance. So when you become alliance, also you can become dominant. The state are self-interest oriented and are kill, and competitive system push them to favor self-help. So you have to develop yourself, self-interest, self-help maksudnya self-reliance. Okay, you cannot rely on others. You have to develop yourself. For example, in terms of security, you have to develop your military self. So state selected strategies to maximize benefit and maximize loss. Okay, Rousseau, Jean Jacob Rousseau says that anarchical system which foster jealousy, suspicion and also insecurity. Dalam sistem anarki ni, bila kita tengok negara lain maju, kita pun jealous, and also we also suspicious because they develop their military. Kita pun suspicious, and also we become insecurity. So that's why war could happen. Okay. Okay, benefits of Realism. So strive to relieve their insecurity by improving their position relatively to the originally secure nation. So the strong do what they have the power to do, and the weak accept what they have to accept. Okay, avoiding dependency upon other state is necessary to maximize a state exposure to the danger of anarchy. Okay, this is the rest. Dibacalah. Okay, so compromise between classical realism and also neoclassical. Ini the difference. Okay, classical roots dia daripada international conflicts, and war is an impactful human nature. Okay, and then maintain the deep causes are found in the anarchical in international system. So second, the state is ontological, superior to the system in classical realism. So difference with contrast with neoliberalism, allowing more space for agency in the form of approach. So in the anarchical system, international system. Okay, the third classical realist differentiate between status quo, power and revolutionist. So power, while neoliberalism regards state as a unitary actor. Unitary actor ni adalah actor tunggal, tak ada actor lain. Kalau dalam chapter 4, our chapter 4, we have state actor, which is the unitary actor, and then we have another one, non-state actor. Okay. The fourth, classical realism, confined is analyzed to subject valuations of international relation. So in terms of neorist, attempt to construct a more rigorous and also scientific approach to the study of international politics, heavily influenced by the behaviorist revolution of the 1960s. Okay, this is conclusion. Skeptic that they can be progressed in IR compared to the domestic politic. So operate on core assumption that world politics consists of international anarchy sovereign state. So realism also see IR as an conflictual and unlimited resource by war. Highly regard for the value of national security and state survival. So every state try to maximize their power and minimize the others. Okay, we go for liberalism. Theory of perspective. So liberalism is a far different from the realism. So liberalism emphasizes on principle of freedom, human right, development, cooperation, education, all things lah. While realism more on military security, nature, the needs thing. Okay. Okay. The words liberals means freedom. Okay, political liberalism, politically, liberalism is defined as a political theory founded on the natural freedom of the human being, with individual autonomy. So it also has an economic perspective. Liberalism can be said as an economic theory in the favor of laissez-faire and also free market. So it's a political idea of legitimate government and protections of one's right and freedoms. So the school of thought which reject power politics. So and it's also possible outcome of international relations. So mutual benefit and also international cooperation is their main agenda of liberalism. So world politics includes many different types of actors who are interconnected. Within the international system, state can cooperate with one another despite the existence of anarchy. So although the international system is anarchy, but they have a certain approach. For example, international organization that we can use to cooperate or other state. Itu menurut liberalism. Okay, so this is the history. Okay, the 19th century, a political ideology which our- co- advocates civil liberty and also political freedom with limited government under the rule of law and generally promotes a laissez-faire economic policy. Okay, and then by the 21st century, so prosperous people were in record time reduced to the depends and also enslaved by a small group of central planner and cronies who robbed their wealth and used the empty power, empower themselves and construct a global empire. Okay, differentiate inside liberalism, the differentiate approach within the some perspective. Why war occurs? So imperialism, balance of power, or undemocratic regime. So this question occurs. So that's why the idea of liberalism came out because liberalism always feel that any dispute should be settled by discussion and also conclusion, consultation. Okay, consultation. So they don't believe in war, and also war actually can damage the world. Okay. Okay, this is some of the classical liberal thinker. We have John Locke, Adam Smith, Montesquieu, John Stuart Mill. Okay, so they bring what they wanted to bring and the ideas of their liberal thinker. For example, John Locke, he always talk about government should be as accountable people, private property good, and human are reasonable. Okay, Adam Smith talk about laissez-faire. Okay, you know laissez-faire pasaran bebas. Economy, government should be limited. People should work for themselves. So Montesquieu, a separation of power, accountability of individual, and equality of individual. And then John Stott, focusing on the freedom, okay, human rights, welfare, capitalism, and also the liberty. Okay, okay. This is John Locke. You can just read it. Okay, the what is he's all about. Okay, so liberal internationalism. So this is from liberal internationalism presume that state will be submitted to a system of legal rights and duty, but without the need of any world government. So there is a natural order underpinning human society. It also a natural harmony of interest in international relation. So it's a belief that through greater interactions and also cooperation, nation and nation state can achieve common goals, especially peace and also prosperity. For example, apa yang kita buat, for example, after we have treaty agreement, we have organization, alright. So they can actually we also can getting peace and also prosperity. So common purpose is a primary to create wealth and peace, and is often assumed one would lead to the another. Okay, so liberal internationalism. So Bentham defend that a federation of state was able to prevent war between its member, putting an end to the pattern of recurring of to war as a way to setting dispute. So dispute can be settled without using war. So Copden believed that the progress of freedom depends more upon the maintenance of peace, so the spread of commerce and the diffusion of education, so that upon the level of cabinets and also foreign office. So liberal internationalism presumed that state would be submitted as a system of legal right and also duty, but without the need of any world government. So there is a natural order underpinning human society, a natural harmony of interest in international relation. Okay, we look so idealism. Idealism is the modern of the liberalism lah. So idealism is a term with several related meanings. So it comes directly from the Greek idealismos, which derive from the word idea. So man has two faith, spiritual and also material. When the emphasis on the realization of spiritual life, it is called idealism. So idealist people does not have considerations for material values of life. The idealist mind and soul rather than the matter and body are more important. Okay, so the philosophical doctrine idealism recognize idea, feelings, and idea more important than material object. Okay, so comparison between realism and idealism. So realism is more political based. Realism can be categorized as premism, size power, nation, and also international system categorized by anarchy. So threats idealism, threats optimism, so enlightenment ideas, and also liberal reason and morality can structure nation, international behavior towards peace. Example with Robinson when he actually initiate the League of Nations. Okay, realism versus idealism. You can just read it. Okay, difference of idealism, and liberalism. So modern founder thinkers, we can see lah. Okay, the thinkers, realism, liberalism, and idealism, and then the theories. Okay, so realism, liberalism, and idealism. So core belief, realism is more on self-interest, state competition for power and security. Liberalism more focusing on spread of democracy, global economic ties, and also international organization will strengthen peace. Idealism, international politics is shaped by persuasive idea, collective values, culture, and also the social identities. Okay, the rest you can just read it. Okay, next we go to the other theory of IR, which is very common, which is Marxism theory. Okay, Marxism theory makes several important contributes to the study of IR. So first, Marxism challenges the realist assert- assertions of the primary of political over economic and also liberal assertion that the expansions of the global market is beneficial to international peace and stability. Secondly, Marxism offer a comprehensive critique of capitalism as a mode of production. Marxist analysis of capitalism have identified issues that lead to genuine conflict within N. Okay, so what is Marxist theory? It's a theory of capitalism. Okay, from Karl Marx and his followers, international politics in attention to the class war. So, in the capitalist state are exploiting the poor, which state, and for safeguarding their interests are restoring to war and also imperialism. So the popularity of this approach has been increased ever since 1917. Sorry, uh, and then in Marxism, and also the word according to Marxism is dominated by the capitalist class who control not only the means of production but the instrument of governance in their respective society. So this instrumental include most prominently the state and all its agency. Okay, so let me see what is Marx criticism. Okay, so Marxist criticism applied political science and economic to the study of literature. So Marxism actually Marxist criticism grew out for the writing of Karl Marx, who was highly critical of the capitalist system of economy and politics. Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. So Marxism is concerned about the ways in which government and business that control the means of production uh, exert control over the working classes. Okay, so Marxism critique is concerned with issues of class conflict, well, work, and the various ideological that surrounded these things. So it is an ideology. It's a group of ideas and value, so especially one that form the basis of political and economic system. Okay, the history, according to Karl Marx, the history of all existing society is the history of class conflict. So, in conclusion, Marxist theory talks about the capitalism, okay, as to how the bourgeois rule over the proletariat. They exploit the working class of their self-interest. So it tells that proletariat have to take some step, unite and also revolt in order to overthrow the rules of dominating class. But in actual practice, socialism cannot be accomplished only through class conflict and a proletarian revolution, according to the some social democrats. Okay, conclusion, Marxist theory of international relation and also globalization. So Marxists uh, are rather skeptical about the emphasis currently being placed on the nations of globalization, as well as they see the recent manifestations of globalizations as not a recent phenomena, but part of long-term trend in the development of capitalism. Furthermore, the notions of globalization is increasing being used as an ideological tool to justify reduction in workers' right and also welfare provisions. Okay, for any further information, you can just go through to the books that stated here, and also you can always go to the Gonstein and also Powerhouse. Okay, so that's all for the chapter 3, and inshallah, so we'll see you on the next chapter lah. Chapter. Okay. Thank you so much. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.